Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Greidick. I'm Dr. Martha Greidick. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. It's no mystery that a more engaged workforce is far more desirable by an organization than a workforce that is disengaged. And while the level of engagement has a lot to do with each individual, there's a great deal that the organization can do to contribute to how engaged its employees are. One of the biggest contributors when we consider engagement at the workplace is the company's culture. The company's culture comes from the top down. Whether companies realize that and whether or not they want to recognize it, it's the truth. A company's culture can be created and crafted by its management and leadership. At the same time, it can be created and crafted by a lack of engagement from those at the top. So if a company, its leadership specifically, actively works on creating a certain type of culture, it is as powerful as if they were totally disengaged and allowed the culture to form itself from whatever is going on within the workforce, within the company. So whichever way the company's culture is formed, it comes from the top, whether it's active engagement or lack of engagement. And company's culture has a great deal of effect on its employees, including how engaged those employees are. So this is one thing that companies must look at. It's their culture. What is the culture, the company's culture like? And is it contributing to an engaged workforce? Or is it contributing to a workforce that's fairly disengaged? Of course, from there, it's up to the organization to either continue to promote the kind of culture that encourages engagement or to fix a culture that is toxic and one that is more likely to promote disengagement from its employees. The second significant contributor in terms of how engaged employees are at the workplace is the workplace experience. And while there is some contribution from the individual in terms of their workplace experience, mostly because of perception. Perception can make a big difference in terms of how a person views their workplace experience. There's much that can be contributed from the organization's side as well. If the organization provides proper resources, proper tools, proper information, everything that an employee needs to get their job done, then they are contributing to a certain type of experience at the workplace for that employee or for those employees. If, on the other hand, there are a lack of resources and tools and information is scarce, then that provides a different experience for those who spend their day at the workplace trying to get things done. It doesn't take a genius to see how different those experiences could potentially be. And again, as I already mentioned, perception of each individual will also contribute to that. But the organization has a great deal of influence in terms of what kind of work experience each individual will have at the workplace. And therefore, the organization will influence what kind of engagement they can expect from their employees. The organization's own engagement plays a big role in employee engagement. In other words, what is the organization doing to promote engagement at work? Are they providing the resources and support and tools and information that employees need? And if they are, that's great, but those are just the basics. What else do we need in order to improve and encourage engagement from employees? Well, things like regular and open communications make a big difference. If you spend your work day never having anyone talk to you, anyone from a management or a leadership position, in a meaningful exchange where they seek your input, where they seek your feedback, where they talk to you like one human being to another, telling you about what's going on within the organization, what to expect, ask what's happening with you as the employee, how you're doing, where you are, what you need, what your ideas might be, then your experience is very different if you do have that kind of experience, that kind of communication, versus when you don't. When you feel like you're just there, completely ignored all day, just there to do the job, and the only time somebody pays attention to you is to tell you you did something wrong or to yell at you. That's not inspiring true engagement. So it's up to the organization to promote engagement by having meaningful, open, and honest communications with their employees. Inviting employees to co-create with the organization, to take responsibility in what is being created and what is being produced, to take pride in their work. That's another great way for an organization to encourage a higher level of engagement amongst their workforce. When we have a sense of responsibility and a sense of ownership, we're much more likely to be responsive in a way that is more engaged in our own experience throughout our workday. An organization can also promote collaboration, not only within departments or between departments, but also between management and non-management. This goes back to communications, co-creating, taking responsibility, things that, once again, can promote the sense of taking pride in what we do and having a part in the organization's success, which translates into a certain level, certain caliber of engagement on the employee's part. Showing appreciation as well as recognizing efforts and achievements within the workforce is also an important way for an organization to encourage collaboration, encourage pride, and effort and engagement from their employees. It doesn't have to be an elaborate event. It can be, but it can be something very simple where an individual is recognized for their efforts, is being told that their efforts are appreciated, is being recognized for their achievements, so that they are essentially encouraged to do more of the same. That in itself can be a great way of encouraging engagement from employees. Another important consideration is to recognize what the organization is doing to discourage engagement. Just as an organization can do things that will promote and encourage engagement from its workforce, it can also do things, whether deliberately, by omission, by ignorance, whatever the case may be, the organization may be contributing to a more disengaged workforce. So it's very important for a company to review what it is not doing or to support engagement, or what it is doing to encourage disengagement from their employees. So it's very important that an organization pays attention not only to the good and positive things that they may be doing, but also to those things that are not serving the organization and its employees. So a company must be able to recognize what it is doing to discourage engagement from the employees, or what it is not doing, simply ignoring the possibilities to encourage engagement, because omission can be just as guilty as doing something negative on purpose. As you can see, while employee engagement is everyone's responsibility, every individual has the choice of how engaged they will be at work today. It's also the case that the organization has a great deal of influence in terms of whether they encourage engagement from their employees, or whether they encourage disengagement or lack of engagement from their employees. So it's important to recognize that everybody has the responsibility when it comes to engagement at the workplace. As the episode comes to an end, let's review what was discussed. The organization has a great deal of influence when it comes to helping their employees to be more engaged at work. One of the biggest contributing factors is the company's culture. The work experience can be just as important when it comes to how engaged an employee will be at work. It's also important to remember, what is the organization doing specifically to promote engagement at the workplace? And it's equally important to recognize, what is the organization not doing to promote engagement, or worse yet, doing to promote disengagement from their workforce. As the week unfolds, I encourage you to examine your own level of engagement at work. If you are an employee, you do have the choice of how engaged you are at work every day. Your perception of your work experience is influenced by how you view your experiences, what lens you choose to use to interpret those experiences. And if you are the employer, it's very important that you examine the level of engagement of your employees and how you are influencing that engagement. Are there things that you're doing to promote engagement? Are there things that you're doing to promote disengagement? And where can you improve to promote more engagement from each individual at your organization? Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I hope that you will join me again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well being.